Hello everyone, welcome to online class of electrical machines 1 subject. Class we have seen about the torque equation of DC motor, problem on torque equation, types of torque, types of DC motors we have seen, numerical on types of DC motors and characteristics of various types of DC motors, that is series, shunt and compound. Okay, all three types of DC motors we have seen the characteristics in detail. So in today's class, I'll be telling about the necessity of starter, 3-point starter, speed control of DC shunt motor, speed control of DC series motor, losses and efficiency in DC machines. So let us start the session. So let us first see what is the starter. Starter is used to start the DC motor. Now there are various types of starters like 3-point starter, 2-point starter, 4-point starter. Usually 3-point starter is used in all the practical cases to start the DC motor. So we are using a starter to start the motor in a desired safe way. See, we know the equation for DC motor, voltage equation, V is equal to EB plus IaRa. Now, EB is nothing but what? Back EMF. Back EMF is acting like a regulating mechanism, everything we have seen that. But now, what we are telling here is that in the starting, EB will be 0 because speed is also 0. So, EB is proportional to speed. So, speed is 0, so EB is also 0 in the starting. Now from the voltage equation of DC motor, V is equal to EB plus IaRa, I can substitute the value of EB as 0. So V equal to IaRa at start. Ia will be equal to V divided by Ra. So V divided by Ra means what? The current value will be very high in the starting. See, if the voltage is 230 volts and armature resistance is some 0.5 like that. So current will become about 200 volt value. So 200 amperes like that. So that is a very high current, and we have to limit the starting current and start the DC motor in a desired safe way. So with the help of the starter, we are starting the DC motor in a safe way. So let us see the 3-point starter. So this is the 3-point starter where we can see starting resistances are inserted in series R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. These are the studs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the handle, and this is there are two important parts here: no volt coil and overload release. We will see in detail each and every part. So in the exam you may be asked to write about no volt coil and overload release. So you have to write its definition and its working. Okay. Now this is a soft iron piece and this is the starter handle. So when it is in off position, it is like this. When we have to switch on the starter with the help of this handle, so slowly we will be moving towards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 studs, and in run position it will be here. And this is a no volt coil which will attract the handle till the motor is running condition. As long as the motor is running condition, handle will be here. That is, all the resistance will be inserted in series, so that if you are increasing the resistance, current will be decreased. Then when we switch off, or when the motor stops, then the handle will come back to its original position, off position. And now this is the DC supply, single phase supply. This is LFA, line field armature of motor. F is the F1, F2 is the field winding, A1, A2 is the armature winding of the motor, and these are the 3 points of starter, LFA. Let us see the construction. The figure is showing the wiring diagram of a 3-point starter. Starter has sections of resistances connected between the studs. So positive terminal of supply will be connected to the handle through overload coil, and negative terminal of the supply will be connected to A2, F2 terminals of the motor. So what we are telling here is that positive terminal of supply will be connected to the handle through the overload coil, and negative terminals of the supply will be connected to A2 and F2 terminals of the motor. First stud of starter resistance will be connected to F1 terminal of motor and field winding through no volt coil. Last stud of the starter will be connected to A1 terminal of armature. Handle will remain at off position due to spring. Let us see how it operates. So whenever the supply is switched on and starter handle is brought on the first stud, the complete starter resistance will be included in the armature circuit. So armature current will be controlled. Okay. So what we are doing from off position to these studs, we are adding slowly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and putting in the run position. Then current will be controlled. That is, current will become lesser. So because resistance is becoming more here. So current motor will speed up and then handle will be pushed ahead on successive studs. So armature circuit resistance will be decreased, but current cannot increase because EMF available is opposing the supply voltage. Starter resistance, which is cut from armature, will be inserted in the field circuit. So field current and flux are decreasing. This increases the speed because speed is inversely proportional to the flux. So whenever the handle is coming to the final stud position, complete starter resistance will be cut down from the armature and it is included in the field circuit. Shaft iron piece of handle will be attracted by no volt coil, due to which handle is held at final stud position against a spring force. Now let us see the no volt coil and overload load release. See, no volt coil is used to protect the motor when supply fails. So whenever supply is failing, no volt coil will be used to protect the motor. So in such a situation when supply fails, the no volt coil will be de-energized and the handle will come back to its off position due to spring force and motor will be disconnected from the supply. Next is overload release. OLR coil. Okay, overload release coil. Overload coil protect the motor from overload. Whenever overload occurs, OLC will attract the lever to short circuit the edge energization of NVC. Now let us see what are the factors affecting the speed of a DC motor. So before we see the speed control of DC shunt motor, we will see what are the factors which are affecting the speed of DC motor, so that if we control them, speed will be controlled automatically. So according to speed equation of DC motor, we can write N is proportional to EB by phi or N is proportional to V minus IA RA by phi. So RA and RSC are very small and hence the drop IA RA and IA into RA plus RSC is very small compared to applied voltage. So we can neglect the voltage drop and speed equation can be modified as N is proportional to V by phi because EB is equal to V. So there are three factors on which the speed of a DC motor is dependent, or the factors which are affecting the speed of a DC motor are the flux, the voltage across armature and the applied voltage. So there are two methods of speed control of DC shunt motor. So we will see separately the speed control of DC shunt motor and speed control of DC series motor. Speed control of DC shunt motor, we are having two methods, flux control method and armature voltage control method. So let us see the first one, flux control method. So in this method, speed will be inversely proportional to flux. Flux will be dependent on current through shunt field winding. So flux can be controlled by applying a rheostat in series with the shunt field winding. So we are putting a rheostat in series with the shunt field winding in the flux control method. So at the beginning, rheostat will be kept at minimum position. Supply voltage will be at the rated value. Current flowing through the shunt field winding is also at the rated value. So speed is also rated and it is called as normal speed. Okay. In the starting, we are keeping the resistance to the minimum position. Rated voltage and rated current we are and rated speed. All the voltage, current and speed are rated at this point. And this rated speed is called as normal speed. So when resistance is increased, due to which shunt field current IL decreases and flux is also decreased, but the speed is inversely proportional to flux. So flux decreases, speed will increase. So speed of the motor will increases beyond its rated value, and by this method speed control above rated value is possible. And the current shows inverse relation between speed and flux as its nature is rectangular hyperbola. So x-axis we are taking ISH shunt field current, y-axis we are taking the speed. So in this method we can obtain the speed control above rated value. So this is the normal speed, ISH is rated here, and we are inserting a resistance in series with the field winding, and we can attain the speed control with the help of the flux control method. Now let us see the armature voltage control method or rheostatic control method. Speed is directly proportional to voltage applied across the armature. As the supply voltage is normally constant, the voltage across the armature can be controlled by adding a variable resistance in series with the armature. So in the earlier case, we have added the rheostat in series with the field winding. Now we are adding the rheostat in series with the armature winding. Field winding will be excited by normal voltage, hence ISH is rated and constant in this method. So what we are doing initially, rheostat will be kept at minimum position and rated voltage will get applied across the armature and speed is also rated. So for a given load, armature current will be fixed. So whenever extra resistance is added in the armature circuit, current IA will remain same and there is a voltage drop across resistance which is called as IaRa drop. Hence voltage across armature will decrease and which will increase the speed below the normal value. So by varying this extra resistance, various speeds below rated value can be obtained. So rated speed above normal array. In the previous case, we have seen the various speeds above rated value was obtained. Now for this case, various speeds below rated value can be obtained. Okay, this is the normal speed or rated speed. So whatever values we are getting in this method are below the rated speed. Third one, applied voltage control method. So in this technique, shunt field winding of motor will be permanently connected to a fixed voltage supply. Okay, while the armature is supplied with various voltages by means of suitable switch gear. So shunt field winding is given a fixed supply, whereas armature winding will be given various voltages through suitable switch gear arrangement. And in the figure we can see control of motor by two different working voltages which can be applied to it with the help of a switch gear. In large factories, various values of armature voltages and corresponding arrangement can be used to obtain the speed control. So in this case, what we are doing, to the field winding, we are applying a constant voltage, some single phase voltage. But to the armature winding, we can, through some suitable switch gear, we can apply 220 and 0 between these two we can apply, or between 0 and minus 220 we can apply, or between these two and 220 minus of minus 220, that is 440 volts. So between 220 we can apply two voltages in this case, that is 220 and 440. Whereas in industrial purposes or in large factories, various values of armature voltages and corresponding arrangement can be used to obtain the speed control. Now let us see the speed control of a DC series motor. So again in this one also we are having flux control method and armature control method. But in flux control method we are having three more methods, that is field diverter method, armature diverter method and tapped field method. So let us see in detail each method. So first one is field diverter method. In this method, series field winding will be shunted by a variable resistance Rx, which is known as field diverter. The arrangement will be as shown in the figure. So the series field winding, we are putting the rheostat in parallel with this. So due to the parallel path of Rx, by adjusting the value of Rx, any amount of current can be diverted through the diverter. So when we are adjusting the path of Rx, by adjusting the value of Rx, and any amount of can be diverted through the diverter. Hence current through the field winding can be adjusted as per the requirement. So due to this, flux gets controlled and hence the speed of the motor gets controlled. By this method, speed of the motor is controlled above rated value. And we are plotting a graph between speed and armature current. So this is without Rx and these are the with Rx decreasing. Next is armature diverter method. In this armature diverter method, it is used for the motor which require constant load torque, and armature of the motor will be shunted with an external variable resistance which can be shown in the figure, and this resistance Rx is called as armature diverter. Okay, so we are putting Rx or rheostat in parallel with the armature winding. In the previous case, we have put the Rx in parallel with the shunt winding, okay, or field winding. Now we are putting the Rx in parallel with the armature winding. Any amount of armature current can be diverted through the diverter, and due to the armature current reduces. So because torque is proportional to phi and road torque is constant, flux will be flux is to be increased. So motor will react by drawing more current from the supply. So current through field winding will increase. So flux also increases and speed of the motor will decrease. So this method is used to control the speed below the normal value. Third method is tapped field method. In this method, flux change is achieved by changing the number of turns of the field winding. Field winding provided with the taps is shown in the figure. Okay, so there will be tappings 1, 2, marked as 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a switch S here, and this is called as tap fill method. The selector switch S is provided to select the number of turns or taps as per our requirement. When the switch S is in position 1, entire field winding is in the circuit and motor will run with the normal speed. Whenever the switch is moved from position 1 to 2, the number of turns of field winding in the circuit will decreases, and due to this, MMF required to produce the flux decreases. Hence, speed above rated value is obtained. This method is used in electric tractions. Second one. So for in first one, that is in field control, flux control method, we have seen three methods: field diverter method, armature diverter method, and tap field method. Now we are going for next is second method, armature control method or rheostatic method. In this method, variable resistance Rx is inserted in series with the motor circuit. As this resistance is inserted, voltage drop across the resistance IaRa occurs. This reduces the voltage across the armature. As the speed is directly proportional to the voltage across the armature, speed reduces the arrangement. Speed will reduce, okay? So in this method, a variable resistance Rx will be inserted in series with the motor, and as this resistance is inserted, voltage drop across this resistance IaRa will take place, and this reduces the voltage across the armature. As speed is directly proportional to the voltage across the armature, speed will be reducing. So, as entire current passes through Rx, there is a large power loss. Speed armature current characteristics with change in Rx is shown in the figure, where we are taking speed on y-axis, current on x-axis, and this is without Rx and with Rx. So, in rheostatic control method, what we are doing, putting a rheostat in series with the armature winding and increasing and decreasing the value of resistances so that we get a different speeds. So next method is third method, applied voltage control method. In this method, a series motor is excited by the voltage obtained from a series generator. Okay, so we are putting here prime mover is there. PM is a prime mover. Prime mover will give the mechanical energy to the generator, and generator is giving the electrical energy to the motor here. And in between, you can see this is generator field, and this is a variable rheostat. Variable voltage will be appearing here. IA is the armature current. A1, A2 is the armature winding. RLC is the resistance of the series field winding. So generator will be driven by a suitable prime mover. Voltage obtained from the generator will be controlled by a field diverter resistance. So whenever EG, as we know that EG is proportional to flux, flux change will be achieved, and this will give the variable voltages at output terminals. And due to change in supply voltage, various speeds of the DC series motor can be obtained. So what we are doing here, we are giving variable voltages to the motor, and we are getting various speeds. Okay, different voltages are giving us different speeds. Okay, I hope the speed control method is clear to everyone. Very important for long answers. So speed of what are the various factors affecting the speed of a DC motor? The various factors affecting the speed of a DC motor are flux, voltage across armature, and applied voltage. So by varying the flux, we are controlling the speed. By varying the voltage across the armature, we are controlling the speed. And by varying the applied voltage, we are controlling the speed. So speed control of DC shunt motor is of two types. Three types actually. First type is flux control method. Second is armature control method. Third is applied voltage control method. So by both for shunt and series, we have seen these three methods. Okay, armature flux control method, armature control method, and applied voltage control method. Now let us see the losses in a DC machine. Okay. So the basic function of a dynamo is the conversion of energy either from mechanical to electrical form or from electrical to mechanical form. So whole of the input energy to the dynamo is not converted into useful output energy, but a part of the input energy will be converted into heat, and it is lost for the useful output purpose of the machine. Energy which is converted into heat is called as energy losses. So for steady state operating conditions, average rate of energy conversion is constant, and the energy converted is equal to the product of average power and time duration of steady state operation. Therefore, it is more effective to deal with the power losses and power output than to deal directly with the energy values. So basic power equation for a dynamo is P input is equal to P output plus P losses. Okay. So input is equal to output plus losses. So power losses occurring in a DC machine will produce heating in it. Therefore, greater the power losses as a percentage of the power input, and hotter will be the machine, which will tend to become very hot. If such losses attain an excessive value, temperature rise might be high enough to cause dynamo to be failure. So there are two general classifications of power losses in a dynamo, that is those that are caused due to flow of electric current in the various parts of a dynamo, and second one is those that are developed due to rotation of armature. So for the purpose of calculation as well as for understanding what takes place in a dynamo, it is desirable to separate each of the two general losses into its components and then determine what values they have as well as the way in which they were varying with the load and the speed. So this is a diagram showing the what are the various losses in a DC machine, whether it is a generator or motor, losses these losses are common. So total input is divided into useful output and total losses. Okay, input is equal to output plus losses. Now what are these total losses? Total losses are mechanical losses, iron losses, and copper losses. Mechanical losses are of two types, windage and friction losses. Iron losses are of two types, eddy current and hysteresis losses. Copper losses are of two types, field copper loss and armature copper loss. So when we see copper losses or electrical losses, they include power lost in heating the shunt field and also in heating armature circuit, which will include armature winding, brush contact, series field and interpole field and compensating field winding. These losses are due to power consumed in forcing a current against the resistance of windings and connections. Actual copper losses of the windings will depend upon the effective resistance of the winding for the operating conditions. So copper losses are I square or losses, which depends on the current, and square of the current into R will give us the copper losses. So for shunt it will be ISH square RSH, for series it will be ISC square RSC, for armature it is IA square RA. So armature copper loss is given as IA square RA. IA is the armature current, RA is the armature resistance, and brush contact loss is also taken into account by including the brush contact resistance in the armature circuit, and this loss will be proportional to the square of armature current, and it is about 30 to 40% of full load losses. When we see the field copper loss, it is further divided into shunt field loss, interpole field loss, compensate winding field loss, and series field loss. Shunt field losses are given as ISH square RSH, where ISH is the shunt field current, RSH is the shunt field resistance. Shunt field loss incurs in shunt and compound DC machines, and it is practically constant. Now, rotational losses we will see. Rotational losses are nothing but mechanical losses here. So rotational losses are mechanical losses plus iron losses. Iron losses are also called as magnetic losses or core losses. And they are of two types, eddy current and hysteresis losses. Hysteresis loss will occur in the revolving part of the machine and the teeth of a DC machine, since any given part of the machine will be subjected to magnetic field reversals as it passes through the poles, and it is directly proportional to the number of brushes, and uh, and its formula is hysteresis loss is eta B max per 1.6 FV joules per second or watts. So eddy current losses will occur in the core, inside the core, because of eddy currents. The current which is not flowing into the winding but it is flowing into the core, then that is eddy current, and loss due to them is called as eddy current losses. Formula for eddy current is PE is equal to KE B max square FC square VT square watts. KE will be the constant here depending upon the electrical resistance. B max will be the maximum flux density. Uh, and V is the volume of magnetic material, T is the thickness of the magnetic material. Okay, and eddy current losses can be minimized by laminating the core. Hysteresis losses can be minimized by using a high-grade silicon steel material. So friction and windage loss is nothing. Windage loss is nothing but because of air, rust may come inside the machine, and because of that losses will be occurring. That is windage losses. Friction losses are nothing but whenever the gears and brushes they are moving and rubbing each other, so sparks will occur at that place. That is called as friction losses. Okay. Now let us see what efficiency formula. If the ratio of useful output to the total input is called as efficiency of the machine. Efficiency is equal to output by input. Output can be written as input minus total losses by input, or input can be written as output plus total losses. So efficiency formula, we are having three formula here. One is output by input, another one is input minus total losses by input, third one is output by output plus total losses. Now let us see the power flow diagram of a DC generator. So in DC generator, mechanical energy getting converted into electrical energy. So from prime mover, it can be a turbine or engine, etc. We are getting a mechanical power as input to the generator we are giving, that is omega Tm. Then after giving mechanical energy because of this Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, we can see that mechanical power is getting converted into electrical power, but in between some amount of energy is getting lost, that is mechanical power is getting lost owing to friction, hysteresis and eddy currents. Now after this when mechanical power is getting converted into electrical power, so electrical power, some amount of electrical power will be lost in armature circuit including series field and interpole field losses. Then we will get the useful electrical power delivered at output terminals, that is V into IL, and in between we can see there are some electrical power lost in shunt field winding. So this is the power flow diagram for a DC generator. Now let us see for a DC motor. So motor converts electrical to mechanical. So first we are giving useful mechanical, we are giving electrical power input V into IL. Then after giving this, some amount of electrical power is getting lost in shunt field winding. Then this electrical power is getting converted into mechanical power, and in between some amount of electrical power will be lost in armature circuit including series field and interpole field while losses. Then motor useful mechanical power output will be received at the output. Then in between we can see that mechanical power will be lost owing to friction, hysteresis and eddy currents. So let us see the various efficiencies of DC machines. Let us see for first one, generator. There are three types of efficiency: mechanical efficiency, electrical efficiency and commercial efficiency. Mechanical efficiency is nothing but electrical power developed by armature divided by total mechanical power output, that is EGIA by BHP of prime mover into 735.5. Electrical efficiency is useful electrical power output by electrical power developed, VIL by EGIA, and commercial or overall efficiency will be equal to useful electrical power output by total mechanical power input, that is VIL by BHP of prime mover into 735.5. Now for a motor we will see electrical efficiency is given as mechanical power developed by total electrical power input, EBIA by VIL. Mechanical efficiency will be equal to useful mechanical power output by mechanical power developed, that is BHP of motor into 735.5 by EBIA. Commercial efficiency will be useful mechanical power output by total electrical power input, BHP of motor into 735.5 by VIL. So overall efficiency of DC generator and motor can also be expressed as for generator, it is useful power output by total power output, or VIL by VIL plus total losses, and overall efficiency of motor is VIL minus total losses by VIL. Let us see the condition for maximum efficiency for a DC generator or for a DC motor. It is same. And let us derive it for a generator. That is, generator output is VIL watts, where V is the terminal voltage and IL is the output or load current. Generator input will be output plus total losses. Output is V into IL plus total losses is IA square RA plus PC, that is constant losses. Now VIL plus IA is nothing but for a generator IL plus ISH. So IL plus ISH whole square into RA plus PC. Now VL plus IL square RA plus PC, because ISH is very small comparing with the IL, so we are neglecting ISH. RA is the total resistance of armature circuit, including brush contact resistance and resistance of series, interpole and compensating windings, if any. Now let us see the generator efficiency. Generator efficiency is output by input. Output is V into IL. Input is VIL plus IL square RA plus PC. Divide over numerator and denominator by V into IL. So we will get equation as 1 by 1 plus IL RA by V plus PC by VIL. So efficiency will be maximum whenever the denominator is minimum. So differentiate this equation with respect to IL and equate it to 0. So we will get the value as IL square RA is PC. So efficiency will be maximum whenever the variable losses are equal to constant losses. Load current corresponding to maximum efficiency is given as IL is equal to under root PC by RA. So this is a graph showing efficiency versus load current. So if, as current increases, efficiency also increases. After reaching some maximum point, as current increases, efficiency will decrease. So the variation of efficiency with load indicates that efficiency increases with the increasing load current, attains a maximum value when the load current equals the value. That is when whenever constant losses is equal to variable losses at maximum point, efficiency will be maximum. After that, the efficiency start decreasing even though the load current increases. So machines are usually designed to give maximum efficiency at or near the rated output of the machine. So let us see one numerical based on this topic. A DC motor drives a 100 kilowatt generator having an efficiency of 87%. What should be the kilowatt rating of the motor? And if the overall efficiency of motor generator set is 74%, what is the efficiency of the motor? Also calculate the losses in each machine. So let us see first one, generator output is given as 100 kilowatt. Efficiency of generator is given as 87%. So we can write this as 0.87. First one is kilowatt rating of motor is motor output in kilowatt or generator input in kilowatt. That is generator output in kilowatt by efficiency. So 100 by 0.87 is giving us the kilowatt rating of the motor, that is 114.94. Next is motor efficiency. It is given as overall efficiency by efficiency of generator. So because from this formula we are writing that one, overall efficiency is efficiency of motor into efficiency of generator. So efficiency of motor will be overall efficiency by efficiency of generator. Divide these two values, we will get the answer as 85.06%. Motor input is motor output by efficiency of motor, that is 135 kilowatt. Losses in a generator is equal to generator input minus generator output, that is 114.94 minus 100, that is 14.94 kilowatt, and losses in motor is motor input minus motor output, 135 minus 114.94, that is 20.06 kilowatt. Thank you everyone for watching the video. I hope today's class is clear to everyone. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Give your attendance in comment.